All right, guys, we're live. Back again. Back again, back again, back again. Let's check this out for a second here. That help? I feel like it's a little grainy in here, but we'll just roll with it. How are all of you? We got a few questions. Not a very big Q&A today, which is fine because I am exhausted. I'm exhausted. Maybe you can tell. I'm exhausted. I have had a lot going on, and I know a lot of you have been waiting for more videos, waiting for some emails, and don't you worry about that because we're back in full force come this August. But let me just go and put this out there. Okay. Get this link. Does that work? Does that work? Oh, hold on a second. Hold on. Just doing some technical stuff, my friends. I'm going to make sure this gets out to Twitter. All right. Very cool. All right, let's jump right into this. So, question number one. This is a question about girl game that you mentioned in the last Smart Girl article. You've written a lot about girl game recently, and thank you. I recognize it now and see its importance. You've explained the mechanics nicely. What you haven't explained is why. What does a girl get out of luring a guy in, fooling him, and then throwing him away? How is that evolutionarily adaptive? Or at the very least, what is so satisfying about it for her that she might do it again and again? What purpose does the cruelty serve? I assume it's mostly unconscious, but what's her motivation? Very good question. So let me just be real here. What it does for women is it gives them a sense of being important. So you can ask the same question, why would a guy hook up with a girl who he doesn't see any long-term potential with, who he knows has feelings for him, but nevertheless, he kind of strings her along, and maybe he positions himself in a way where it's how do I put it? Well, I'm not doing anything wrong. She could go if she wants to go, right? But yet he continues to ask her to come out, bring her over, hook up with her. Um, the guy does it. Okay, you can say on the surface, oh, he likes sex. He's attractive. He wants sex. But really, if you dig down into it, what he wants is he wants the validation of the pretty girl. And at a certain point, he doesn't want that person to not want him because there's a sense that, there's almost a guilt of ending it almost. So a lot of guys who do this stuff will even get into a little bit of a guilt situation about calling it off because it's kind of like you made a bad decision to get in. Now you have to let her down. So that's why girls do it. Girls game guys because a girl games a guy, and the guy, and there's a thrill of it, of having this guy interested. But then it's the combination of her not knowing what to do then, not knowing if she should drop it just at that moment or if she should keep it going because she feels bad. But sometimes it's not even about feeling bad. It's just because she's got this power and it feels good to have it. It feels good to get the guy's attention, to have a guy who really wants her because she doesn't feel good about herself. So having the guy want her is a way that it props up her self-esteem and her sense of value. So that's why girls game. It's not necessarily an evil thing. It's not necessarily, a lot of it comes from the fact that she herself is in not such a great place. It's a maturity thing. as you develop a better attachment style, what tends to happen, male or female, what tends to happen is that you have less of an inclination to game. But if you have a broken attachment style and you're broken attachment and you're uncomfortable about getting people too close to you, but you still want attention, you still want intimacy, then you game them. So that's the reason why. That's the motivation behind it. Uh, as guys, we perceive it as cruel, and maybe it is, but for the girl, most girls don't do it for cruel reasons. It's just it feels good, and then it gets carried away. I have a niece who is really just super cool, really awesome girl, and she's even doing this now. It's a very got guys interested in her, and she even likes the guys, but she likes the attention, I think, a lot more than she likes the guys themselves. She likes being liked. So she'll give just enough to waste that guy's time. And it's funny to see it play out. All right, next question. And by the way, chat, if you have any questions, you can drop it in the chat. You talk about how women can be girl game by feeding one's feed, okay. You talk about how women can girl game by feeding one's ego, being extremely sexual, affectionate, etc., super attentive and loving. What about the women who are on the other side of the spectrum? No one really talks about this type of girl. She's closed off, not super into affection, only for brief moments, if at all. Not into letters, lovey-dovey stuff, but she'll cook for you, have sex, etc. Just wants to have fun with her guy. Not too much desire for intensity. Is this normal for a woman in a relationship? So, okay. Difficult to say exactly what this context is because I can see a lot of different girls who will fall into that category. And some of the girls, if you interpret this on one end, you could say that, oh well, she's just not trying to game you, and there's nothing wrong with that girl. But what I sense when I look at this is I see an avoidant attachment girl. So she doesn't want to get too close. She definitely wants intimacy. She wants to get closer, but it's very, very terrifying. Understand, if you're more on the anxious attachment side, you're hyper aware and threatened by you're hyper aware of someone's investment in you. And so if you feel them pulling away, you're really, really sensitive to it, even if it's like an aberration, even if, it could be that the person isn't pulling away, they're just distracted with something else and you misidentify it. So the anxiety gets triggered and you kind of grab onto them, you go after them. And maybe you drown them and you get needy and you get demanding. And maybe a girl games to try to get such a guy in. But with someone who's got avoidant attachment, especially with a woman, she will want to have you there, but she's her issue, her attachment issue is that rather than try to test and chase after attachment after somebody, after her guy being there for her, what she does instead is she doesn't trust anybody getting close to her. She considers someone getting too close to be a risk. So in the very beginning, she might kind of open herself up to pull you in, might be a little bit of a gaming to pull you in. But then what she does is similar to what you're saying, which is that she doesn't want to have a lot of intimacy. She may be okay with having sex, but it's kind of like less connected sex, and you can kind of feel that she's withdrawing. She doesn't want to open herself up very much. That's very classic avoidant attachment. And if you're an anxiously attached guy, it's not surprising that you might find yourself in a relationship with such a woman. But the only thing I want to really emphasize here is it's not that she doesn't want those things. It's just that those things terrify her. That's what's going on. It's not that she doesn't really want them. Everybody wants them. It's just that some are more honest about how much they want them. And and we also misinterpret wanting them as being like being needy about them. And that if you're not needy about it, then you don't really want it. That's also not true. That's just coming from an anxious person. So I hope that makes sense. Next question. Is it healthy / should your girlfriend, wife have a high sex drive, and your general thoughts on that? Before I go to that question, though, I got a question here from Nash. Hey, Pat, for this kind of guy that thinks a girl isn't opening up enough, couldn't that also be neediness on his part? He doesn't think she is coming forward enough. Nash, that is a really, really good point, and it's exactly what I alluded to with the anxious avoidant dynamic. So, if a guy has more of an anxious attachment and the girl has more of an avoidant attachment, you tend to see these dynamics in the relationship. And those relationships tend to be very frustrating because the guy is trying to ping the girl for more intimacy. And because of his need, in part, she pulls back because of his need, but it's also because she's afraid of it and he's kind of overwhelming her. So even though she wants intimacy, it's kind of like she's more of a cat around it. She's like, she doesn't feel super comfortable. She feels like, and it's also, let me make a point here, that the guy wanting the intimacy from her, I'm not trying to diminish that he should want intimacy from her, but he's kind of acting in a way to get it from her. So it's like he wants to connect, but is he really even connecting? Because if he was really connecting, he'd be able to meet her where she was at, which could involve her feeling at that moment less comfortable. What I found is that this is what anxious guys will do in relationships with women, and unless the woman is more, as we would say, secure herself, she's going to pull back from that. The guy should take responsibility for the whole thing. The approach of trying to push on her to get her to open up more will not work with an avoidant woman. It won't work. It won't work in that mechanism. And so the guy is going to have to be much more honest about his own attachment stuff with her. That will, because it's not making her into a problem, because avoidant girls actually feel like they have a lot of problems. So if you're like trying to get more intimacy out of her and she's pulling back and you complain about it, she'll actually start to feel, in many cases, like she doesn't feel good being around you because it brings up more shame about her own intimacy issues, which she's aware of. So you can just see how this stuff, you want to take it on yourself and you want to express essentially your own issues in that case. It's not necessarily like a game thing. If you're dating, it's more precarious. You have to read the situation more, but this certainly applies in a relationship. If you've already crossed certain thresholds, this is important to do to heal a relationship. Otherwise, you're just going to keep playing this game of, trying to get close and then the other person getting afraid and then withdrawing. It becomes a power struggle. It's not good. It's not a good dynamic. All right. Great question, Nash. Next question. Is it healthy / should your girlfriend / wife have a high sex drive? And your general thoughts on that? Well, I think it's, yeah, I think it's healthy. I think, I mean, if we're speaking just truly, from a health standpoint, not medical advice, but low sex drive is usually like, high sex drive is a positive thing. It's a sign of youth and vigor. So if you don't have high sex drive, I would contend that there may be some sort of hormonal issue with you. I'm not trying to blow that out of proportion. People have different sex drives, but yeah, I think it's healthy to have a high sex drive. Now, there is a certain type of high sex drive, which is really more like impulsive hypersexuality. And that usually comes from trauma in the woman. And that's kind of like a nymphomaniac kind of thing. That isn't really so much a sex drive as it is an addictive behavior, a compulsive behavior. So I'm putting that to the side because that's not coming from a healthy place. It's very detached. The whole experience is very detached. It's very using, um, of the person or in the experience. But as a general kind of healthy sex drive, yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great for a woman to have it. The What I've found is that women do have different sex drives, but women also have a lot of their sex drive, which is based on the dynamic in the relationship. So you can have sex drive based on stress, and how do I put it? It's kind of like more of like an anxiety novelty, and that's like a lot of desire in the beginning is based on this excitement of who is this person? Um, are they going to like me? The anticipation, and that creates a lot of arousal. But the mistake that a lot of guys make is thinking that that is the only time. That's the only in this early stage is a woman going to have that kind of sex drive. And the reality is that over time, a woman's sex drive, the circuits are more based on oxytocin and the level of connection within you and the woman. If you and the woman are very well connected, I don't mean in kind of like a codependent way. I mean like in a healthy way where they actually feel good, then they will want to have sex more often. It's the avoidant individuals who tend to want to have sex less and also tend to have a hard time orgasming, the girls at least. So, all right. Last question. Had a f- had a follow-up question to your response on if I should be the one to initiate contact, even though the girl said she texted me. So this is from another. These are from past shows. Ongoing saga. She ended up texting me first before I saw your response. Here is the convo. Her. Hey, I was thinking about going to the beach today. You around? Me. Hey, damn, that sounds fun, but I'm already gone for the day. What's your schedule like next week? Her. Schedule is always unknown, truthfully. It changes week to week. Me. I feel it. I'm staying until Sunday. LMK when you figure out your schedule and we'll plan something from there. Her. No response. Haven't heard from her and it's been 2 weeks. My question to you is, since I told her to get back to me when she figures out her schedule, should I be waiting? And is it over pursuing needy if I reach out this point in the dialogue? I use this strategy because Corey Wayne always says you need to wait for her to get back to you if she doesn't give you a counter date. In the past, I've made this mistake, so I felt this was the proper response as I tried to set up a second date and she didn't give me much to work with. I am only second guessing it because your last video you mentioned I need to be taking the lead and I value your advice. She has watched a few stories, so I know she is still engaged. Should I reach out or hold out? Where do I stand in this? So, look, this is the way I would go into this whole thing. It's not that I'm disagreeing with Corey Wayne's advice because I think tactically I get it. The whole thing is what kind of dynamic do you want to be trying to cultivate in general with the girl, and how is this girl's behavior really um jiving with you? Like when I look at this interaction, what I see is a girl who is, I mean, I definitely see a girl who's protecting herself. So, because she went out of her way to ask you to hang out after there had been a lag and you had put the ball in her court. And so, and then you say you can't do it. Now, you're very reasonable and you ask her to hang out again, but girls, if guys are prone to feeling rejection, when they're turned down. Women are really prone to it. And so in many ways for her, because she's not feeling great about herself, she feels like maybe she overextended because she invited you out and you couldn't go, that she pulls back more. And it's not a mature response. So uh, I think in this situation, you have two ways you can handle it. You can, you like, because you say here, let me know when you figure out your schedule and we'll plan something then. I understand why you did this in the interaction, but she's less likely to put herself out there again. So you can do two things. You can either reach out again to her and see if she's going to be down. She might just be waiting for you to take the lead and be asking her rather than making her ask you. And I think a lot of more serious game guys understand, Nash himself, is in the comments here, that putting just a little bit more effort, showing that you want to see her, that can go a long way. And, again, no disrespect to Corey Wayne's stuff, which I think can work really well tactically, but it is playing this kind of, uh, I think very often it tells guys don't extend yourself at all because something could happen. Now, the other strategy you could take is, since she's watching your stories, then you you know you could wait longer if you wanted to, and you could continue to see other girls and post stuff on your Instagram, and you could make her feeling of missing out with you get to a point that then she goes and messages you. But I don't think that's necessary, and I think it sets a bad precedent for, even if you do get her out, she's going to be constantly trying to find ways to protect herself emotionally. Nash's comments here is pretty much spot on. Hey, I want to do XYZ this weekend. Come join me. Super casual. It's super casual. You're not going through all the hard time of a schedule. It has a spontaneous feel with it. And this is how you want to go about doing things with girls generally. You're out doing things, living your life, and you're just throwing lines out there and seeing, is she gonna go have fun, or is she gonna miss out on the fun? The girl feels like the fun is where you're at. If she's not doing anything and she's bored, in particular, I mean, she's gonna be like, sure, let's do it. And you never really put yourself at risk. You don't put all this pressure around it, which causes her to, overthink and back out. As Nash says in the comments here, this kind of thing means you're re-engaging, but not even waiting for a response. Gives her another chance to re-engage. So yeah, that's the feedback. I'm much more in the camp of doing what Nash suggested in the comments than taking the other approach of just building up stuff on your social media and hoping that she goes and re-engages. But what I'll say is that the best strategy is to do both, because then you're leaving the door open for her to come, but you are also simultaneously amping up the desire and anticipation. So anyway, guys, good short little Q&A. Like I said, we're going to be back at it big time next week. So I look forward to that. Look forward to seeing you then. And until then, enjoy your week.